Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cecilia's Tech Corner and the very first episode of this new live stream series. I'm so glad you're here, and we have a live chat, and I hope it works because this is my first live stream alone, so I have to handle everything. But you need to subscribe in order to access to the live chat. And we have the amazing Barca Herman moderating. So she's a cloud expert. So take advantage of her and ask your cloud related questions. Today, we're kicking off with a big topic, but we are going to break it down to make it simple, approachable way. Cloud computing. Who heard about cloud computing? If you're wondering what the cloud actually is, how it works, or why everyone keeps talking about it, this episode is for you. You don't need to be technical with a technical background to follow along. My goal is to make it clear and relatable as possible. We're going to talk about what the cloud really means, the different types of cloud services, cloud strategies businesses use, and the most concerns around cost, security, and reliability, right? So, all right, let's take a quick poll. Which cloud do you use? Are you using Azure? Are you using AWS? Are you using Google? Something else? Or whichever one holds your photos, right? Drop them in the chat or in the comment sections. All right. I don't see the live chat for some reason. It's okay. All right. Let's get started. Let me bring here the presentation. Here we are. All right. So let's start with the big question. What is cloud computing? At its simplest, the cloud computing is basically computing over the internet, right? Instead of running software or storing data on your own computer or servers, you access it over internet from huge data centers that companies like Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and others, I mean, you name it, there are so many clouds, the data centers that they own. You're already using the cloud every day when you're streaming Netflix or Spotify, right? You're listening to music, you're using the cloud, storing your photos in iCloud or Google Photos, using Gmail or Outlook, even scrolling on social media. These are all cloud powered services. Why did cloud computing become such a big deal? That's a good question, right? Because companies realized it's a lot easier and cheaper to use powerful, scalable resources over the internet instead of buying and maintaining everything themselves. Cloud gives you flexibility, the ability to scale instantly, global access, and access to technologies that used to be impossible for small teams. That's why it's such a huge part of modern businesses. And before cloud, everything was on premises, meaning companies kept everything in their own building, their own servers, storage, networking, all physically on site. And even the people maintaining that, right? You need employees to maintain the data centers. You need to pay your power bill. With the cloud, all of that lives in someone else's highly secure data center. And you just use it over the internet. So a quick comparison, on-prem, you buy it, you manage it, you maintain it, you upgrade it, you patch it, right? The cloud, you rent what you need, the provider manages the infrastructure, and you scale up and down as needed. That's great. Neither is better. It depends on the situation. The answer is always depends. Some businesses need full control and choose on-prem. Others want speed and flexibility and choose cloud. Many do both. And that brings us to strategies later on. And one of the biggest shifts with cloud is the move from CapEx to OpEx. Big upfront costs. I mean, first of all, right? Traditional on-prem is CapEx, capital expenses. So big upfront costs, buying servers, hardware licenses, a data center space, cooling those data centers. They really need cooling. All of that. Cloud is OPEX, operational expenses. You pay monthly or yearly if you reserve, if you know what you're going to need, and you pay for what you use, like a utility bill. This shift lets companies avoid huge upfront investments and instead pay as they go. For startups, small businesses, and even large enterprises, that flexibility is a game changer. Now let's talk about the major three categories of cloud services. We have IaaS, which is infrastructure as a service. We have PaaS or PaaS, platform as a service, and we have SaaS, SaaS, software as a service. Infrastructure as a service, you rent raw computing power, virtual machines, storage, networks. You still manage a lot of things, like the operating system, but you don't deal with the physical hardware. Examples of this would be on Azure, would be Azure Virtual Machines. On AWS would be the same service would be AWS EC2. On Google, Google Compute Engine, and so on. Right? I'm focusing on the three main because these are the three that most people know, but we have more clouds, of course. This is great for companies that want flexibility, but they still want control. This is very used until today. Plus, PaaS, platform as a service, this is more for developers. The provider manages the servers, the operating system, and runtime. You just focus on your app. It removes the headache of server maintenance. Examples of this would be Azure App Service, AWS Elastic Beanstalk, Google App Engine. And the last option is SaaS, software as a service. These are complete apps you access over the internet, and this is the most known. No installation, no maintenance. You just sign in and use it. Examples of this would be Microsoft 365, Salesforce, Gmail, Dropbox. My friends from the Microsoft data community, Power BI and Fabric. That's a software as a service offering. Most people interact with SaaS every single day. So question, let me know in the chat or in the comment sections, which one do you think you use the most? Infrastructure, platform, or software as a service? And security in the cloud is one of the biggest questions people have. It always comes to, what about security? And this is where this shared responsibility model comes in. It basically says the cloud provider handles some of the security and you handle the rest. See that we have on-prem there and you have to handle everything for on-prem. Then we have the three options that we just mentioned. So the split depends on the service type. With infrastructure as a service, you manage a lot. Operating system, data as well. With PaaS, you manage your application and data. And with SaaS, what do you manage? You mainly manage your data and user access. The cloud provider handles physical security, data security, the hardware, the networking, all the things that you don't want to manage. Understanding this model helps set realistic expectations. The cloud doesn't magically secure everything for you. You still have responsibilities. So let's talk about strategies. Organizations don't just wake up and move everything to the cloud. They adopt different strategies depending on their goals, size, and industry. Here are the main ones. We have cloud first, the new projects that go to the cloud by default. We have cloud native. Apps are designed specifically for the cloud, lightweight, scalable, modern. Hybrid cloud, a mix of on-prem and cloud, probably the most common approach. Multi-cloud, using more than one provider, like Azure and AWS, often for flexibility and redundancy. And then we have the lift and shift versus modernizing. What is this? Lift and shift means move your existing system as is. I take it as is and put it in the cloud. That's lift and shift. Modernize means redesigning and rebuilding it to get cloud benefits. These strategies help companies move at their own pace. So, what are the common concerns when it comes to cloud? Right? Which one is first? Cloud, the costs, of course. Cloud can absolutely save money, but it can also get expensive if you're not paying attention. Biggest issues could be leaving things running. You forget to turn off some service that you provision, over provisioning, provisioning more than you need, right? Using something, maybe you're using some computer, some virtual machine that is way bigger, way more, um, yeah, way bigger than you really need, right? So you have to really plan, not monitoring usage. That's another thing because sometimes you don't really know what you're gonna need, but you have to monitor so you learn based on the patterns, and then you have to remember that we can scale up and down. So simple cost strategies could be set budgets and alerts. That's a must. Set budgets and alerts. Use auto scaling. Shut down unused workloads. Pick the right type of service. So cloud gives you flexibility, but you still have to manage it. Security. Security is usually the number one concern, along with cost. But yeah, people always say, what about security? I don't know if I feel comfortable going to the cloud. Right? So the good news is cloud providers invest billions in security. But remember the shared responsibility model. You still manage identity, access, data protection, and monitoring. So some easy security wins, multi-factor authentication, MFA. So you know that most companies right now are asking you to use maybe your phone to authenticate, like 2 steps or even 3 steps authentication. So they send you a code to be sure that it's you. Well, that's MFA. That's multi-factor authentication. Good access control, encryption, monitoring and alerts. These basics go a long way. And of course, there are more strategies. Right? I'm just mentioning some of them. Reliability is another concern. People also worry about outages or downtime. Who heard about outages recently? Cloud actually improves reliability because it's built with redundancy everywhere. Multiple regions, availability zones, backups, and failover capabilities. You run your app in multiple locations, so if one goes down, your system keeps running, right? So that's the key. Reliability is one of the biggest strengths of the cloud when designed well. So how do you actually decide when to use the cloud and when to stay on premises? Here's the simplest way to think about it. Choose the cloud when you need flexibility, fast deployment, scalability, global reach. You need modern analytics. Or when you want to avoid big upfront capex costs. Right? You don't have the money to make the investment upfront. Cloud is for you. Maybe you're starting a new business, or you're testing a prototype. You don't want to invest heavily in on-premises equipment, probably. Choose on-premises when you need strict compliance, full control, local low latency systems, or when you're already invested in your own hardware. That's important because many companies already have everything that they need. So if that is enough for your company, if that is enough for you, no need to go FOMO and we need to go to the cloud. I mean, chances are that you are already hybrid because many of the services we need today are on the cloud. So probably, I mean, most of your equipment is on premises, but then you're using some Microsoft 365 or some Gmail workspace, some ADP for payroll. I mean, I'm talking about services that companies may acquire, QuickBooks Online. I mean, that's cloud. So, I mean, even if you have most on premises, your servers, or your data center, and everything, chances are that you're using something in the cloud already. So, the choose hybrid when you need the best of both, which is what most companies do today, applies. Hmm? It's not cloud versus on premises. Sometimes there are some wars over the social media. No, no, on premise. You're gonna go back to on premise. You see it. And this is why no on premise is not dead. Of course, on premise is not dead. It won't be dead. And actually, the cloud. What is the cloud? Someone else's computer. So I mean, there is always on premise somewhere. So it's not cloud versus on premise. It's choosing the right tool to do for the right job. And most organizations, the answer is a thoughtful mix. And here is the other question that always comes up, and it's a good one. If the cloud is so great, what happens when the cloud goes down? So, cloud outages do happen, absolutely. But here's the part people often forget. Most outages affect a single region or a single service, not the entire cloud. Hmm? And the companies least affected all have one thing in common: strategy. This is where I give you my honest take. The cloud isn't the problem. Poor planning is. If your entire system depends on one region or one service, you were already vulnerable, even on premise. I mean, if you have only one data center, I mean, if the power goes down, bye bye, outage, right? So if your entire system depends on one region, one service, you're vulnerable. This is why cloud strategy matters so much. Multiple region design, redundancy, backups, and failover, hybrid options, understanding your responsibilities. This turned a cloud outage from a major business disruption to a complete non event. So the real question isn't, will the cloud ever go down? The real question is, are you architected to survive it? And that brings us to the end of today's episode. Before we wrap up, let me ask you this. What's the one thing you learned today that finally made that click for you? Drop it in the comment sections. I love hearing these aha moments. So we covered a lot today, actually, but here's the big takeaway I want you to leave with. Cloud isn't scary. It's not mysterious. It's simple, computed, delivered over the internet. Flexible, scalable, and accessible for everyone. And whether you're super technical or brand new to the space, understanding the cloud helps you make smarter, more confident decisions at work in everyday life. And now a little teaser. Next episode, we're going to make sense of AI. Yes, artificial intelligence, in the same simple, relatable way. So if AI feels overwhelming, confusing, or overhyped, you definitely want to be there. Thank you so much for joining me for this very first episode. If you found this helpful, make sure you like, subscribe to the channel, and share with someone who could benefit. So, got a question? Got questions or episode ideas? Put them in the chat or comments. I'm always looking for what you want to hear next. So see you in the next live stream.